thank the worship team this morning for the wonderful job that we did. David, good to have you back. What Sister Valerie was sharing a while ago, that is real. And when you see that in contrast to what we have and what we complain about, and not just simply that, but sometimes our sense of lack of responsibility and care. You know, folk, not only should we be thankful, but we also should be responsible. And part of that responsibility means that indeed we ought to reach out and help. I want to direct your attention to a passage of scripture this morning because I think it fits very, very well with what Sister Valerie just shared and what we're able to see. It's Matthew chapter 25, and this is a strange Christmas sermon, and also a strange Christmas passage. So Matthew chapter 25, and I'm reading from verse 31. This was Jesus telling about circumstances surrounding the kingdom and his second coming. He said, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He'll put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They also will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison, and did not help you? He reply, I tell you the truth. Whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Wow. What a passage, huh? You know, Christmas, or probably the season of Christmas, is always surrounded by a lot of questions and controversies. Now, I don't know about you, but maybe you have some as well. And I hear them. You see documentaries every Christmas season being run on television, and they're trying to unearth different things about this Jesus, about this season of Christmas. So the questions might be anything from, did this really happen? Was there this person was born in this lowly stage, in a manger as we say and we sing, did this really happen? Other questions such as, when did this happen? Is Christmas the right time, or is December 25th the right time to celebrate Christmas? All of these questions. And some will say, well, maybe it is March 25th. Some will say, no, it is in July. And so you have this myriad of proposed dates for the birth of Christ. Well, some might even ask questions as to the origin of the celebration of Christmas. Is this paganism? And so this morning I want to wade into the dark despair of some of those questions. Because I know this, and some of you have them. So I want to kind of take us into the darkness, and then I want to see if we can move back into the light. Now, if I'm successful today, you'll leave here excited and happy because you've gotten what God wanted you to get. But if I get stuck there, then I would not be successful. So maybe I might need your prayer then. You know this. Religion is as old as humanity. That's what we've been told. In fact, social scientists have long discovered that it did not matter what culture they went to. People always worship something. They always do. Now, those of us who think, well, maybe the reason for that is because of some kind of socialization. Or maybe the reason for that is because of travel and so forth. But think back, if you will. In ancient times, when they did not have ships, they did not have airplanes, they sure did not have the internet, and Google, of course, was not around. And so how do you get from one side of the world to another? So if you go to Asia, you find evidence that people were worshiping from centuries and centuries. And if you go to South America, you find that. And if you go to Africa, you find that. So we cannot conclude that it is because of socialization or travel. Because travel on that kind of scale did not exist then. So the question then is, from where did people get this drive to worship something? Where did it come from? Well, we're told by people like anthropologists and so forth, we're told that there are three main phenomena. This is what they say, that gave rise to the development of religion. The first one, they say, was the existence of spirits. In other words, people became conscious of the fact that there were some things that were happening in this world that they could not see, they could not touch, but they were impacting the world. Spirits. And so from this, they would conclude certain things, like for instance, if something that we now know as a hurricane, or something that we now know as earthquake, when these things happen, they would say the spirits are mad. And so because the spirits are mad, the drive now, the human drive, is to figure out how can we control what we cannot see. That's a tough thing. Because if we can see you, we can fight you. But if we can't see you, we have a problem. And so this became the big question. How do we control this? So from the existence of spirits, the unknown, came the drive then to develop certain kind of ceremonies, magical ceremonies, that would be done over and over with a hope of speaking to and controlling what we can't see and control. It is from this then that we get magic. Magic. Now those of of you from the Caribbean will know this magic as Obia, as Seance. Those of you from places like Trinidad will know it as Shango, and so forth. And those from Haiti will know it as voodoo as well. So what we cannot control, we devise ways to try to do it. And so from this we get magic. Now, if for some strange reason we wanted, the object that we had was to make sure that rain falls. Because it is too dry and we believe that there's some kind of spirit out there that controls rain. And we do this sophisticated ceremony, or this, if you will, ritual to produce rain. And all of a sudden we did it. And rain came the next day. And we believe that the gods, the spirits have answered. And so the spirits have answered. What that means is, I need to do this all the time. And so this is what we call myth. Myth then is an explanation of reality. Even though it might not be true, we believe it to be true. And so these scientists now tell us that religion then comes from these three things. The existence of spirits, that's the first one. The development of magic to control the spirits. And three, the mythologizing or the creation of these mythical stories that explain these realities. Well, that's what social science tells us. But the Bible tells us something else. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. So here is the thing then. From biblical times then, we note that there were different kinds of celebrations that commemorated different events. Like, for instance, the coming of winter, or the ending of winter, or the coming of spring, and the coming of summer. There are different kind of events that were created to celebrate these times. Now, in ancient Mesopotamia, am I losing anybody? That is where Abraham, and this, in fact, that is where the whole Jewish culture, if you will, was owned. In ancient Mesopotamia, they had this god, this spirit that they couldn't see, that was believed to be Mithra. Mithra. And so, this god Mithra, they do all kinds of ceremonies to speak to Mithra. Now, from ancient Mesopotamia, we come now to the time of the Babylonians, if you will. And I'm jumping over a whole lot of stuff. And the same Mithra came to be called Marduk. You probably have heard of the god Marduk. Because, you know, we have some references even to Marduk in the Bible. And so this Mithra became Marduk, and Marduk we can't see, so therefore we build statues. When the Bible spoke about Baal and so forth, Marduk was one of those guys. And so Marduk became a famous person for celebration. Then from the Babylonian culture we move into the Greek culture. And the same Marduk became known as Jupiter. Jupiter. And so now we have all kinds of ceremonies that were developed to celebrate and to speak to Jupiter. And then from the Greek times, we have the Roman times that came about. Because when one empire conquered another, they now control the world. So while the Romans control the Greeks, the Romans control the world. And so now the Romans, they had many gods. Because they believed that the way to keep people peaceful was to make sure that they keep their gods. But among these many gods, there was this god called Saturnus. Saturnus. Saturnus coming from Saturn, that we know, right? As one of the planets, if you will. Saturnus. And so, It was said then that the Romans had this elaborate ceremony starting from December 12th. And it went all the way into the beginning of January. This was a time when they had all kinds of celebrations to commemorate what is believed to be Saturnus' blessings to humanity. Rainfall, fertility, and so forth. Incidentally, we were in Mexico, Mexico City this week. Just came back yesterday morning. And I was talking to some of our friends there about what their Christmas celebration was. And they said, well, we start from December 16th. I said, what are you celebrating? Guadalupe. And then Guadalupe connects into this old Magi thing that we know of the wise men coming to visit Jesus. And so they have all of these kinds of mythical celebrations that are connected into this Christmas story. And it goes all the way into the beginning of January as well. So very similar traditions. So the Romans then, they had Saturnus. And so from the 16th of December all the way into January, they were celebrating Saturnus. And this celebration they would have in the streets marked by a lot of festivities and meals and visiting friends and exchanging of good luck gifts or charms and so forth. Gift giving, if you will. The Romans, they would deck their halls with garlands and laurels and green trees and lights and candles. Does that sound familiar? Stay with me. I'm not emerging from the darkness. Okay? So, Saturna was a fun and festive time for the Romans. And so, when Jesus was born, there was this tradition that when kings and nobilities were born, it was important to celebrate their birth. And so one of the ways that you would do this is that you would bring them gifts. And so that's why the wise men came, because they heard about Jesus being this king that was born. That's why they would come all the way from Iraq. That's where they come from, here. And they would travel all the way to come and commemorate the birth of this Christ child. So here is a problem now. So the Romans had Saturna that they were celebrating in this period of time. And now the Christians believe that their king, Jesus, indeed is king. He was born. There is really no evidence in the Bible that there was any great birthday celebrations that continued after. What we do know is that when Jesus was born, wise men came and they were, they offered gifts and so on and so forth. And so the question then came about, when did this Christmas celebration actually get started? When did it get started? Well, history tells us that we can probably see the beginning of that around about 98 or so AD. That's when the Christians began to really celebrate the birth of Christ. And part of the whole thinking was that, well, if he is king, if he is Lord, then it's important for us to be able to commemorate his birth. Well, the Christians were now living under the Roman regime. And so because they were living under the Roman regime, the question was, when are we going to do this? How can we do this? Because for the first 100 years of Christianity, they were persecuted. 10 bitter persecutions. So they had to be living on the bridges. They had to be in hiding. So any thought of celebration could not really happen in any big way. Well, in about 313 AD, this guy by the name of Constantine, Emperor Constantine, he was on his way to fight one of his memorable wars, if you will. Because Rome was trying to take control of the then known world. inscription, conquer and to conquer. He understood that the Christians had a symbol of a cross. And so he accepted this as the God of Christianity, speaking to him that he needed to convert and he would have victory in the war. Well, Constantine converted. And of course he had victory in the war. And so from then he decided that he was going to influence the Roman government, if you will, to make Christianity free. And so in 321 AD, the Edict of Constantine was signed that now made Christianity a legal religion. And with this legality, if you will, Christianity now emerged to become the state religion. And so, this was incredible prominence that Christianity now got. So the next step, in about 335 or so, it is said that the very celebration of Saturna, Constantine influenced the Roman government to shift that celebration to celebrate the birth of Jesus. So, you will hear some people say then that Christmas is really a Roman tradition. It's a Roman pagan holiday. But what Constantine did, he resignified that holiday. It was not so much to say that Jesus was born on December 25th or was born on this particular day, but he said if Jesus is indeed God, it's important then to take one of the most popular period of celebration in Rome and re-signify that so that this time becomes a time when the birth of Christ is celebrated. Now, does that make sense? Okay, so that's the root of Christmas. So, I went into all of that now to say this, that the temptation that we have as Christians is to get caught up in the accidents and the historical incidences concerning the birth of Christ. And we often forget the most important fact that Jesus was born. And the fact that Jesus was born, he was born for a purpose. And that purpose is what ought to engage us. That purpose is what ought to move us. And so this morning I've shared that with you so that you can understand the history that is there. But now we need to put it behind us and focus on the fact that he was born. And focus on why he was born. And so this is where then we come to the passage that was just read for you. Because you see, this passage, it pointed out something very important that I started talking about last week. It's that it is not so much so that we need to be celebrating the birth of the Jesus who came over 2,000 years ago. But it's the fact that we ought to be preparing for his coming again. And so, well, what do we do then at birthday celebrations? Sister Rena told me that her birthday is the 18th of December. That's what she told me. So, usually, and my brother's birthday is in December as well, and all of these, it's a bad thing to have birthdays in December. If you guys didn't figure that out, you need to change the date. You might need a Constantine on your side. Because you don't get presents. You get one gift that is going to be birthday, Christmas, and everything else. Okay, that's really what happens. Okay? But one of the things that we tend to do with birthdays, we bring gifts, right? That's what we do. We give gifts. Because it's part of the whole celebration. So the question that I want to ask this morning is, what do you think Jesus would really need for his birthday? do you think he would need? Our hearts? That's a pretty good thing. That's a pretty good gift. I want to point out some things from scriptures though. And these are what I believe, the passage that we just read for you this morning. What Jesus was after when he shared that. He shared about a king going away and blessing some people, and then coming back and finding what he did not expect. And then he pointed out some very important truths that we ought to take seriously. So, I believe Jesus had a wish list, if you will, for all of us today. And the first of those wishes is that we ought to prepare for his second coming. That's it. Because we don't know when he's coming. You see, we anxiously prepare today to celebrate his birth. That's what we're concerned about. Because Christmas is coming. But the Bible speaks of two comings. The first one, he came lowly as a baby. In fact, Isaiah reminds us in beautiful poetic words, for unto us a child is born and the son is given and so forth. He came as a baby. In fact, in Matthew chapter 28, the Great Commission that was given, Matthew spoke about this other coming. And he warns us of what we ought to do before his coming. And he ties this coming to the evangelization of the world. Much like what we heard Dr. Valerie sharing this morning. In fact, when you read the scriptures, you hear that, well, I will not return until the gospel is spread throughout the world. So the evangelism of the world, the evangelization of the world, is directly tied to the coming of Christ. Well, the first coming was about him unveiling his plan to the world. He came as a baby, as a lowly baby, but his second coming won't be as a baby, will be as a judge. Here is what Tertullian, one of the early church fathers, said, and he lived in the 2nd century. He said, he was speaking about the prophecy in Zechariah that spoke about the coming of Christ. He said in Zechariah, Christ is described in a twofold garment, which prefigures his advent. First, he was clad in sordid attire, he said, which represents a lowliness of changeable and mortal flesh. Next, the sordid garments were removed, and he was adorned with a robe down to his feet, along with a turban and a clean mitre, he said. This represents the second advent. So not only is the first coming of the Lord Jesus Christ heralded by the church and by angels and all these kind of things, but we ought to be prepared for his second coming. In fact, in Acts chapter 1, when Jesus was being taken up to heaven, the scripture says an angel echoed these words, "Ye men of Galilee, why stand gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus who has been taken from you into heaven will come back. In the same way you have seen him go." So the bottom line is this: Jesus is coming back. So we can get caught up with all the trimmings and putting up the trees and the lights and all these things. But the most important thing to remember is that Jesus Christ is coming back. Today, in a rather unlikely Christmas reading, we're reminded of his second coming. Well, here's the next thing that I think we need to be mindful of. It is not just simply preparing generally because he's coming back, but we ought to prepare our hearts for his coming. You see, we can prepare our homes because that's what we do. We put up lights and we put up trees and we bake cakes and we do all these kind of things, but it is preparing our homes. Folk, the attention must shift from the home to the heart, because that's what God is concerned about, our hearts being prepared for his second coming. The book of Genesis tells us this tragic story of a paradise that God created. He put human beings in the middle of this paradise. And then in a tragic way, this paradise was lost. Because sin entered the world. And when sin entered the world, Isaiah tells us that this sin separated us from God. And it is for this reason why Jesus came. To bridge that gap between humanity. So, God's hand is not short, Isaiah said, nor his ear heavy that he cannot hear. But it is our iniquities that have separated us from God, and our sins have hid his face from us. But what God did when he sent Jesus Christ, he sent him as a sacrifice, if you will, that would open our eyes to see him and to experience him. And yes, to accept him as Lord and as Savior. I started out this morning about what scientists say about why religions came to be. But here's what the Bible has to say about that. In fact, St. Augustine, who was the first theologian of the Christian church, and some of you who are into this kind of stuff, he was also black. So he was the first black theologian. Well, the first theologian of the Christian church was black. So here's what he said. He said this, "For you have formed us," about God he said this, "for you have formed us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until we find rest in you." So why is it that in every culture, in every region of the world, people worship something? It's because the designer God designed a vacuum in our hearts so that we will not rest until we find him. And some of us, we go to trees and rocks and moon and sun and whatever it is because we're searching to find him. No, 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 no. It's not socialization. It is not history. It is because God has designed you for himself. That's what it is. And scientists are just trying to postulate and postulate why that is so. No, no, no. Human beings have perpetual questions that only God can answer. Who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing here? Only God can answer those. And so no, it is not the anthropologists who have the answer. It is that God has designed us with a vacuum on the inside. And so, when the creature no longer has fellowship with the Creator, because that's what sin does, it breaks fellowship. The creature will seek to find replacement to make the gnawing emptiness that he feels on the inside go away. That's what we do. And so we can search for it in things like drugs and sex and power and acquiring things. But those things, they don't prepare our souls for God. In fact, what they do, they corrupt our souls even more. Sadly, those efforts will not drown out the emptiness and lack of meaninglessness that we find on the inside. The message of Christmas is that our souls can only find peace and solace in God. So we prepare our hearts for him by coming home to him. That's what we do. We prepare for him by reaching not for the stars, not to celebrate Saturnus. No, no, no. We prepare our hearts by reaching for him because he's here. By asking him to forgive us and to come into our hearts. But here's the final thing that I'll share this morning. We must prepare by investing in his mission. That's what Sister Valerie is sharing this morning. The passage that was just read in your hearing emphasized that preparation as well. 3 times we're told, "I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink." You remember that? "I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothing and you did not clothe me. I was sick, and you did not visit me. Then he said, whatever you do to the least of these, you've done it for me. The bottom line is this, friends. We cannot prepare for the coming of Christ if we don't connect to his mission. Because much like I said, his second coming is directly tied to our ministry in this world. As we share his message to a world that is lost, that's what will hasten his coming. Today, we have poignant reminders about why we ought to stand up for justice and mercy in the world. You see, we have a system of imbalance. And I don't need to point this out because you know that. Think about our country, for instance. The middle class is fast disappearing. Political leaders only seek to make decisions to engorge themselves and to fleece the poor. Hear me now. I was just reading the other day that the economic plan that the current, that the Trump administration has, it will give a 13% tax decrease windfall to the top 1%. I didn't say that. It's in the budget office that analyzes and say that. And the middle class, those of us who fool ourselves to think we're in the middle class, because you know what happened? That is fast disappearing. Because for one, they can't even define it anymore. Have you ever tried to research and find what the middle class is now? They can't define it anymore. It's a moving target. Will experience tax increase, they say. Now, let me ask you a question. One of the big things that they want to do away with is the inheritance tax. How does it affect you and me? Huh? The inheritance tax are for these big people with big money who have like $5 million or so that they want to just give to their children. Now, how many of our parents died and leave us $5 million? How many of you have $5 million to pass on to your kids? Come on, folk, wake up. But this is going to be a nice tax break for the middle class too. I'm going to point out something else. So, this healthcare plan that is being proposed, or the skeleton of which is being proposed, one of the elements of that is that it's going to make 100% of your premium tax deductible. Well, if you're poor and kind of afford insurance anyway, is that going to help you? Well, I'm just talking practically. So we live in a world of imbalance. That's what we see. And one of the things that concerns me today, and I know I'm going to get in trouble, you know something? When you're in trouble, just stay in trouble. One thing that concerns me is a cabinet that is being picked. These are all billionaires. Then when was the last time billionaires make decisions that are going to benefit you? Now I must move. I think I need to move. But you know, I could go on. Because some of these things are just sitting on my heart. Justice has fallen in the streets and people do not matter. You don't matter. You're just a vote that I can manipulate. In a strange way, I believe it points to the hope of the Christmas message, though. Such experiences underlie the mess that our world is in. Indirectly, the Christmas season whispers to us about the out-of-focus-ness, if I can make up that word, of this world. It is not easy to explain the mess we're in. Many have tried. Few, if any, have succeeded. You know, this author by the name of Carlyle Marney, he wrote this book entitled The Coming Faith. And here's what he suggests about humankind. He said humankind is the most savage of the beast. Catch this, I'm going to read some more. He said our bite is poisonous. Our hands are club. Our feet are weapons. According to Marnie, nothing in nature is so well equipped for hate and hurting. It's kind of sad. Confuse us, he said, and we lash out at anything. Crowd us, he said, and we kill and rob and destroy to get out of that. Deprive us and we retaliate. Impoverish us, he said, and we burn villas and villages in the night. Enslave us and we fight. Pamper us and we may even poison you. Hire us and we may hate both you and the work. This guy is pretty pessimistic. He said, love us too possessively and we're never weaned. We're dependent. Deny us too early and we never learn to love. And so we blame our parents for all the mess we're in. Put us in cities, he said, and all our animal nature comes out with perversions of every good thing. This is very pessimistic. But I want to share a more hopeful and optimistic image of humanity. Because there's a good side in humanity. And that's what I want to appeal to today as I wrap up this talk. Our bite is also sometimes sweet. Isn't it? That's why we call it love bites. Our hands can also offer a caring touch. That's why we hug. Our feet may also be helpers. That's why we have people like Dr. Valerie and others who would go and do all these good things. So it's not all that bad. Nothing in nature is so well equipped for loving and healing as we are. That's the power that rests in us. Confuse us, and we often run for community because we realize that no man stands alone. No man is an island. Crowd us, and we usually seek solutions because when you put people together, they come up with creative ideas. Deprive us, and we'll organize for a better tomorrow. That's why we have unions. Oh, improvise us, and we bargain collectively as well. Enslave us, and many of us will practice nonviolence because we understand that the power that will transform humanity is not hate and bigotry, but it is love. Yes. Help. Pamper us, and remain stead. Seek to find strength. Hire us, and we usually work hard to make a difference. Love us and we're fulfilled. Deny us and we seek solutions. Put us in cities and we just simply transform cities. Society is a great composite picture of our power to harm. But society is also a great composite picture of our ability to do good. You see, folk, this morning, the mission that Jesus points us to is a mission of doing good. And so as I close this morning, what I want you to hear is that Christmas now has to be more than just celebration. Yes. Christmas has to be about our getting our hands dirty, our stepping into places of need and making a difference. And so, one of the things that we're doing at Genesis, our children, they're going to be engaged this Saturday in bringing gifts to a homeless shelter. And you know something, as parents, many of you have already gone out and you're buying these gifts. But there might be some of you here today who didn't know enough about this, and maybe wrapping presents. And on Saturday, they're going to be taking these to a homeless shelter right here in Pompano Beach. And so this morning, I want to call you as a church. I want to call you as a congregation to do like what Sister Valerie and the team encourage us to do. Let's get involved. Let's become a part of the solution, a part of the mission. Let's step out and do what we can. The children are going to be coming out. We're going to be praying for them as they go. But if you're here this morning and you want to be a part of that, I want you to talk to Minister Carlene, because she will give you your assignment. Because there are many gifts that are needed. It's not expensive. Maybe $10, maybe $20, maybe $50, whatever it is. But we can make a difference. You know, folk, sometimes we tend to think that there are not homeless people around us. But they are. You know, last year we did the same thing. As I went to the homeless shelter and I was there, I was looking at this young lady and a young boy. And I realized I know these people. They're a part of Genesis at one time. There they are. Folk, we have a responsibility to reach out to those who don't have. And so I'm going to ask you to stand this morning. We're going to go to communion as well. But I want to do this before communion. I'm going to have you stand. And if you're here this morning and you want to engage in this, or you want to get some gifts as well and help us with this homeless thing this Saturday, I want you to come on out here. Because we're going to pray for you. We're going to pray a blessing on you. Because you see, this is how we make a difference. I want you to come as the children are coming. I want you also to come. Because no, Christmas is not just about lights. It's not just about Christmas trees. It's about making a difference in our world. So come on out. All of you who want to be a part of this, I want you to come on out. We're going to pray for you this morning.